Tuesday, December 12th, 2017. Um, just going to give you guys hopefully a short update. So, yesterday, on Monday, me, my brother, and my brother's girlfriend always go out to eat, and we call it Mac Monday because we used to go to this restaurant that serves macaroni and cheese. But I think it was an awful restaurant, and the macaroni and cheese was terribly bland. It was cheap though. It was cheap, but we kind of mix it up nowadays, and we don't always get mac, which is nice. But we went to this restaurant yesterday called Pokey's, I think, and it's supposed to be like a Hawaiian restaurant. But it's not really a restaurant. It's like a Subway or something. And you make this bowl, and we got there, and there's all these options, right? And I have no idea what I want, so I just ordered one of the pre-made bowls, and I ordered the vegetarian bowl. I didn't realize it, but there's seaweed in this, and I'm not a huge seaweed fan. I'll eat a little bit of seaweed, like with some sushi, but this was a lot of seaweed, like seaweed salad over rice. There were other things. There were pickled vegetables and tofu. There was avocado, which was the best part. Um, but at the end of the line, after they make it, you can get these toppings, and I have no idea what I want as my topping. And I asked the girl making it to describe the one topping because I have no idea what it was, and it takes her a second. I'm thinking, oh God, I ain't about to ask her to describe each topping. So I'm like, well, what do you recommend? And she's like, well, she smiles and she says, um, I like a little bit of kick. I get the Cheetos, the flaming hot Cheetos, and I thought, well, that's strange, but if that's what you recommend, I've never had Cheetos on top of my food. We'll go with the Cheetos. Um, but I don't know, Cheetos and seaweed. I just can't recommend it. And that was yesterday Mac Monday. I did get boba tea, um, lavender boba milk tea, which was good, and maybe redeemed it, maybe. Today at work yesterday at work we saw this deer on the side of the road in a ditch. He was stuck there. I think he had probably broke his leg, or my boss said he broke his back. I don't know how he knew that, but it looked like he had been hit by a car or something. He's sitting in this ditch covered in mud on the side of the road. He's making this sort of neighing sound, a really sad sound. Like, yeah, a neigh, or sound like a kazoo, a kazoo neigh. And we saw the same deer today, and he was dead. Um, I guess my boss got kind of mad because he cursed all the neighbors around the deer, said someone should have done something about it. It was on the side of a private drive. He says he was going to shoot it that night. I mean, he didn't shoot it, but he said he was going to. I don't know what he was going to do or whatever. I don't know. It was really sad. It was, and it was really cold today. Not the deer, but the deer was too. The air was cold. Too cold to work, I think. Well, not really, but it wasn't comfortable. Certainly the deer was very uncomfortable. I finished reading this book about a week ago called Roadside Picnic. I think I should have looked up the author, but I didn't look up the author. But I'll put it in the description. I probably couldn't pronounce it anyway. I think it's actually written by two brothers. And I put off reading this book for a long time because one of my favorite movies is based off of this book. And, sometimes a few things can ruin each other. But I've saw people recommending it. If you like this other book, so Roadside Picnic is the book that I might pronounce this wrong. Tarkovsky based Stalker off of, and I've seen the book compared to Solaris, which is another book that Tarkovsky made a film based off of, and people say these two books are similar, and I could see where they were kind of similar, although I think the similarities were, I don't want to say superficial, but they weren't overwhelming. The main character in this book goes by Red, and there's going to be some spoilers. Although I'm not giving a full plot description, just some takeaways. But the main character's name is Red, and at first I didn't really like this character because he's so combative. He's so angry. It seemed like a cartoon character. He's like picks the guy up by his shirt collar. I'm like, people don't do that in real life. They only do that in movies, in bad movies, comedic movies, and eventually, though, I felt a lot of sympathy for this character. I think anyone reading the book would, and you start to understand why he's so angry, and I could relate to his anger, and because he does illegal work. He goes into this zone, and his whole life he's been in and out of jail, And it's and he goes on at the end how he didn't want to, he never wanted to get one of these proper jobs because these jobs made him sick. He said, you know, sick to be doing someone else's work, or a slave to someone else is what he felt like. But the way he was working, he didn't lead to a happy life for him. You know, his daughter ended up very sick because of the work he was doing. And I guess he just never had these opportunities to learn or grow. I'm meandering, but it was about him coming to terms with society. It reminded me in some ways of vaguely, I suppose, of Catcher in the Rye. The same way the main character, you know, it's like he's realizing, to use a metaphor, that he's the square and life is the he's the square peg and life is the circular hole or whatever, and that's why he's so angry. Um, or dissatisfied would be a good one too. And the book had an optimistic ending, I think, which is something I did appreciate, and maybe something I always look for when I'm reading something is, do I feel like this has an optimistic view or a pessimistic view, which maybe is a reduction of a thing to say it's one thing or the other. Um, and it was a really sad book. It was a heart wrenching book, but I think it was I think it was more of an optimistic book, and it depends on how you interpret the ending, which I won't get into precisely. Well, maybe I will. At the end of the book, it appears as though the narrator wishes for happiness for everyone. He gets a free wish, you know, like a genie thing. He wishes for happiness for everyone, but that's after he realizes that happiness for everyone is sort of impossible because of the way there's certain contradictions. You know, happiness for one person means suffering for another, which is also about him and the way he, you know, the way he isn't fitting into society, I suppose, correlates to that. Um, oh, on optimism, yeah. So he's thinking, you know, it was a sad book, but I think it was optimistic, and I think the more sad something is, the greater capacity it has for optimism. You know, the deeper the lows, the higher the highs, etc., etc. I mean, that's a pretty cliched idea. There's the yin and yang. There's as above, so below. There's some Carl Jung quote about a tree's roots in hell and in heaven. But one thing that I don't think that I've thought about recently that doesn't always come with these things, and maybe that's because it's a misguided thought. I don't know, is how important orientation is. We'll say like emotional orientation. So, for example, if you know, if there's a polar thing, although I think most things are more three-dimensional than that, but we'll say a polar emotional thing, sad to happy. If you're happy and you're pointing this way, pointing towards sadness, we'll do it like this. I think gravity takes you really quick. You know, you get sad, you get pulled down really quickly. If you're in a dark place or a sad place and you're looking up, I think that's the I think that's as in some ways the closest you can get to beauty. I think that's the closest you can get to innocence, and I think that's the closest you can get maybe to um, honesty. I would say that in some ways I think that's what faith is in being in the, you know, the the darkest cavity, the darkest pit, being in an empty space that's submerged, you know, bedrock, and being able to look up and say, hey, maybe there's a sun up there or something, which maybe correlates to our deer. I guess that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching.